I got to know about the hat.
Oh, I like hats. I'm from New York City, and the only frustrating part is when I go home, I look like a tourist, even though I want to stop people and say, I'm from here. I
Yeah.
grew up in the city. But I love hats. I've always worn them. I'm a classic movie buff, and this was the hat Clint Eastwood wore in one of his movies in the late 60s. It wasn't even a really great movie, but and I think I wear them so much that, in the work I do as a trainer and consultant and speaker, it's almost kind of like my trademark. So
I kind of,
yeah. So they don't remember my name. They say the guy in the hat, the cowboy hat.
And tell me how you got into classic cars.
Boy, oh boy, I'm less into classic cars, and I think I was born in the wrong decade.
Yeah.
I'm old school. I was taking girls out in the '90s and playing Spinners music and Johnny Cash and the Temptations, and so I'm more nostalgic than I am a classic car buff.
Right.
I know enough to keep the thing running, but those cars, when I get into it, they take me back to my dad and my uncles.
Yeah.
And I just love those 70s era long, big old pimp mobiles.
Oh man,
I love the smell of gasoline. It's all the things.
It smells different when it burns
You
regular.
pull up next to a Prius and they just look at you, and I just.
Okay.
So I think I enjoy how I feel in them. I go to car shows just to chat it up with guys, and they're super into the type of engine and the pistons, and I don't know that much. It's my meditation. I like driving them. I'll go run errands for no reason, just to be in the car.
Yeah, well, I've seen you. There's a '72 Riviera that's yellow, and then the Oldsmobile. What is
Oldsmobile Delta 88 Royale. It's a '75, a convertible. I've always loved convertibles. So.
Yeah.
My dad drove Oldsmobiles. I call it the working man's Cadillac.
That's right. Yeah.
My uncles drove Oldsmobiles. So
my dad always drove Oldsmobiles.
I just feel
Studebakers.
nostalgic. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I just feel nostalgic when I'm in them.
Welcome to Connections. I'm Glenn Gould, and this is our series where we have the opportunity to talk with people that we've met along the way, influencers, leaders, community influencers, and people we just find very interesting. And today, I think we've got all of that with Ken Williams. Ken, thanks so much for coming in today. If you would, tell everybody a little bit about Unfold the Soul and your speaking and training and kind of what you do to help people and make a difference in the community.
It's great. Thank you. My name is Ken Williams, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I'm originally from New York City. I live here in Coweta County. I'm an educator. I'm a former classroom teacher, assistant principal, and school principal. And today, for the last 13 years, I've worked as a consultant, trainer, speaker, and coach. I love the work. I taught, I led, and now I consult with the mindset of a coach. And I just believe in the infinite power of people leaning into their collective expertise. So with all of the challenges that teachers and leaders face these days in schools, with all the adversity kids come to school with, it still comes down to the talent in the room, leaning into each other, seeing those challenges as context, and leveraging their strengths to deliver on that promise of equity and excellence for kids. So what I do primarily, my passion zone, my lane is organizational culture. Like that, I try to accelerate culture, and sometimes you have to disrupt the status quo to do that. But it's always in the service of helping adults realize that when breakthroughs happen, it's because of something they did. It's not because the community changed or the demographic changed or all of a sudden everyone's income increased. It's because we got together and realized that you got strengths, he's got strengths, I got strengths, and we need to leverage those, and we can make a difference for kids. I have a handful of teachers who did that for me in my life, and I just pay it forward.
Yeah.
I just see it as paying it forward.
Well, that's awesome. And tell me how because you were an educator, you were a principal in Clayton County.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And then you made the shift, and I guess part of that was you wanted to make a bigger impact. Mm-hmm. You can't. I mean, obviously, wherever you are, you can make a big impact. But if you can spread yourself out, you can, and then plant the seeds of other people and get them fired up. Tell me a little bit about how you made that shift.
That's pretty much what it was about. I feel pretty fortunate in life. I've never left a job. I've never left a job unhappy. I just move on to my next ambition. My wife, Nicole, will tell you that I have restless spirit. So I'm always trying to tinker. And, I'm an entrepreneur at heart.
Right.
I've always had that yearning to, chart my own course. And I don't know, I pay myself better than employers pay me.
Exactly, yeah.
So I've always been somewhat of a risk taker. I get that from my dad. And so that's exactly what happened. When I moved from being a teacher to a principal, it was to broaden my impact. As a teacher, I had 25 kids. As a principal, I got 25 teachers who lead 25 kids. And if I can inspire and provide the resources to those teachers, more kids are going to learn more. And then I sat in an audience one day at a meeting I didn't want to go to, and I heard this guy speaking. His name is Dr. Rick DeFore. And in the education world, he's a god. God rest his soul. He passed away a few years ago. But when he was done, I not only enjoyed the content, but I said to myself, wow, that guy gets to stand up there and he's got a good wry sense of humor and he gets to influence. And I loved it. And I walked up to him and I said, this stuff is great. And I said, one day you're going to be in two places at once. When that day comes, I'm going to be right there.
Yeah.
And he laughed and shook my hand and invited me to stay in touch. And I did. And so he served as a mentor for me for a decade, and
what a
I'm
blessing.
very blessed and fortunate. Yes, sir.
Yeah, what a blessing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned that, and people who know me know that I've got a little bit of speaking background and always wanted to do that. And I remember driving between Van Horn and Amarillo. Wow. on I-10 and hearing Earl Nightingale for the first time, and
yes,
the way
sir.
I felt, and I just said, you know what? That's what I want to make people feel the way I feel right now, the way he made me feel.
No
And
question
so
about it. The
I
voice
can
of God,
certainly,
Earl Nightingale.
Yeah, you're not kidding. So you mentioned you have a wife. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah, we've got my wife, Nicole, is a fifth grade teacher in Fayette County.
Oh, my goodness.
She's a
Okay.
fantastic teacher over at Birch Elementary
Yeah.
nearby. And we've got two kids. Our son Adam is 22, and he's traveled the world. He's a digital nomad, and I love
Wow.
it. I love it most because he does it on his own dime.
There you go.
That I'm most proud of.
There you go.
And he right now is a server at the Beirut over in Peachtree City.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Wonderful place.
a very cool mom and pop restaurant that seems to have found a way. They have this amazing following, this
Yes,
little
they do.
suburban restaurant that even through the pandemic stayed open and viable and profitable. And a lot of it's because, the front of the house manager, Hattie, just bends over backwards to make every customer feel like a valued client. So
Yeah, we love that place.
our daughter Mia is 20, and she finished her first year at Georgia State. And then with the pandemic and everything, she's taken this year off, but she's just started her own cinnamon roll business. She's a vegan, and she bakes cinnamon rolls. So
Oh my goodness! Well, you got to put us in touch with that.
I will absolutely
Grant
do
is
it.
a vegan, so
Grant,
there you go.
you got a half dozen
So,
coming your
all
way,
right,
brother.
He's not a vegan. He's a vegetarian, but he's working it.
Listen, we wake up every day as vegans
There
until
you
we
go.
eat something. So, I tell everybody I'm a vegan until I have some Chick-fil-A. And
There you
then
go.
I'm not a
Absolutely.
vegan.
Yeah.
So that's what she's doing. She's got the entrepreneurial spirit, and this age is just different. It's
Yeah.
just different. When I was her age, it was college or bust,
Yep.
because I think opportunities were such that if you didn't go to college, all the stats show that your income over your lifetime would be here instead of
Exactly.
here. But man, there's so much opportunity now that Nicole and I have been able to take a step back and allow them to live their lives. School will always be there, and
Well, that's great.
yeah, but right now she's making it happen. She's home baking right now.
So I want to go back to the career path a little bit, because you mentioned that you were a teacher and then you became a principal.
Yes, sir.
And I think I heard somewhere on either your website or your podcast, can't remember which, that your mentor who challenged you when you became a principal gave you 2 empty journals
Yes.
and challenged you to record what happened.
Yes.
And that has become the Bless His Heart podcast.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that and about that
Well,
story.
It's it's one of those situations. I kind of parallel it to what I try to do with educators, and that is, when you become an influence in someone's life, you can give them a reputation to uphold. A question I ask them all the time is, I want you to close your eyes and think of someone in your life who thought more of you than you thought of yourself. And my follow-up questions are, what did they challenge you to do, and who did they challenge you to become? And I got a handful of those people, and L.E.D. Young was one of those people. I don't like to write. It's the
Yeah,
bane
you
of my
like that.
existence. But I love to speak.
Yeah.
But she challenged me. She gave me 2 blank, thick journals and said that, you already have 3 years of the principalship under your belt. That was too overwhelming to journal, but I'm going to challenge you to journal your journey. And so because I couldn't let her down,
Yep.
and that's what happens. Because I couldn't let her down, I journaled every day with no intention of ever publishing or sharing. And so the journals are very raw, they're very uncut, they're very transparent. It's got the good, the bad, and the ugly of my leadership. And 12 years later, I decided to turn it into a podcast because when I look back, leaders are dealing with the same issues, the same challenges. And it gives me a chance to, you ever hear a speaker and they just sound like they just completely have it all together. They got an answer to every
that guy's
question.
Perfect, right?
Right, exactly.
Perfectly rehearsed.
And sometimes I know that that's a challenge when I'm doing the work.
Yeah.
I also know I didn't sound like that the first day I was doing it. I mean, I was literally holding the book up. Okay, Rick says to do this. Step one, do that. Next, we need to develop norms. Do that, And so the podcast gives me a chance to go back and be very transparent and vulnerable about, feeling good about good decisions I made. And then I've got a bunch of screw ups in there, a bunch of trial and error, a bunch of bad decisions. And it's my hope that, other leaders and teacher leaders out there can, see the good, the bad, and the ugly and know that there's hope on the other side of that.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not in the education space, the formal education space, and yet I've really enjoyed listening to.
Oh, thank you, good brother.
I think it's a lot of fun, and it's really interesting because we get to the point where when it comes to teachers and all of that, my kids were homeschooled, so we're a little different. But once you've moved through the education system, you're kind of done with it, and you forget that that's exactly where all of the future leaders, that's where all of our future employees, that's where all of our some of our mentors will come from.
That's right.
And so there is a huge opportunity, and let's face it, it's underfunded, but it's overfocused sometimes.
Agreed.
And so it's kind of like the football quarterback, right? If anything goes well, they're not going to tell the teacher they did, but if everything goes wrong, it's all the teacher's fault.
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
So that's pretty tough. But I heard one story that you shared where, and you don't need to go into it, but the little story where the kindergartner who decided he was going to bite you.
Yes.
and the way you handled that, I don't know that you could handle that.
I can tell you right now, that story makes me feel like an old man because I know I couldn't get away with that. And listen,
it's not like you abused the kid.
No, I didn't.
It's just you couldn't.
I didn't hurt him. I just think I shocked him a little bit.
Exactly.
We were having some challenges with kindergartners. Leaving mommy and coming to school, and a lot of them were crying. And I don't know, my school just kind of got into this pattern where they're just calling parents to come pick the kids up, and I'm saying, no, they got to be here to learn. And we got to work through some of their initial grief, and they're going to be okay. But if I ask you to keep them in school, I will also serve as your first line of support. If the tantrum becomes a point where it's distracting in the classroom, you call me and I'll come take care of it.
Right.
So I picked up the kindergartner and he was 35 pounds of mad. And took him back to my office, and I'm an elementary principal. I'm kind of a big guy. I don't say things twice too many times, but I'm a big bear. I'm a big teddy bear.
Yeah.
Well, I looked around and he's got the look in his eye like he's going to tear my office up, and I'm looking at him, and my mom's voice runs through my head, which is, you do that, it's going to be you and me.
Yeah.
And nobody else, and I'll go to jail for it. And I used to think to myself, is my mom really go to jail for that? And so I turned my back at some point. I had a Palm Pilot at the time. And the corner had like teeth marks in it. He started to bite it. And so he started to charge me, and I just took him by his arms, and I don't know, like a kettlebell, I just picked him up and then turned him to 9:15. I didn't squeeze hard or anything. I didn't have to. Just turned him to 9:15. And he was like, I'll be good. And I promise you, for the rest of that year and the rest of the next year, anytime I walked by his class, he would jump up and hug me.
Yeah.
We were best friends after that. I don't recommend that to be the course of action. Please don't put me in your blog. I understand. But
back then, it was a different climate. Yeah.
And listen, I don't support corporal punishment in schools. But man, it's tough these days between the cameras and social media and everyone having a voice and digital beer muscles. it's tough because I led like a coach. I was
Right.
hands-on, literally. And
Yeah.
so I knew I had to have a relationship with the kid to put hands on. But if I grab the tough kid around the neck and walk him down the hall and I'm in his ear about what he can be,
There you
they
go.
they came to look forward to that.
Yeah.
Now, if I don't know the kid, that can be construed as mistreatment. But I knew the kid.
Right.
And it was okay. And I didn't have to worry about someone filming me and then I'm
And
on
it takes you
YouTube
out of
and then
context.
it's out of context when that kid needs me to touch base with him. He needs me to know that I not only see him, but I'm glad he showed up that day.
Sure.
And the kids who come from homes like yours and mine, they need that too. But if they don't get it, we supplement.
Right.
For a lot of the kids I serve, man, we were the most stable adults in their lives, even though we were dysfunction junction as adults.
I
Like we were a
understand, yeah.
hot mess.
Yeah.
But we were the most stable adults in a lot of our kids' lives, and so we had to love on them and expect a lot from them. And when I got there was a lot of loving, but not a whole lot of expectation.
That's good advice for anybody, not just for teachers and educators, but for the parents or the aunts and uncles and the
That's right.
and the cousins and brothers and sisters. You've said it a couple of times, and I don't want it to be lost in what's a wonderful conversation that it's the expectation. It really is. It
gotta
comes
have
down
both.
to that. Yeah.
So I work with a lot of schools now, and between the social justice movement and inequities, and there's a lot of focus on building relationships. But I said that we build relationships to move learning forward. So it's got to be hand in hand. It can't be in isolation. The fundamental purpose of schools is to move learning forward. So everything we do should be in the service of moving learning forward. And sometimes some of us take our eye off that ball a little bit in the service of like really deeply empathizing with kids' backgrounds and their struggles. What I explain to them is, I'm not a researcher, I'm a practitioner.
Right.
And I notice patterns, and I'm good at noticing patterns. If we love on them without the expectations, what we end up creating, Glenn, we create something that this country rails against, and that's victims.
Well, you're not.
We
kidding.
create victims, and so I want to call out injustice and do something about it. And there's a lot of calling out, and to me, not enough doing something about it.
Sure.
So I'll give you just a small example. With so much of education moving to the digital realm and distance learning, then a lot of the battle cry became, lots of kids without internet, lots of kids, there's so many, what are we gonna do? These kids they don't have, and they don't. I get it.
Sure.
I have a principal that I'm mentoring and coaching, and she took a grant writing class one day, found that T-Mobile is looking to give away some money in the form of hotspots, and she wrote a grant, got 50 hotspots for her kids in rural Missouri. And to me, that's just a small example of, hey, call it out and let's do something about it, right? 'Cause
Absolutely.
just calling it out doesn't mean it's going to appear,
Yeah.
And I just don't want us to. I'm okay with calling things out. I just don't want to move to that realm where we're calling it out just to identify problems.
Sure.
And I'm a fixer.
It's easy to find problems.
All day.
Yeah, it's really easy.
All day.
It's really hard to find solutions.
Right.
That's cool.
So I don't want to feel sorry for the kids. I want us to advocate for them.
Yeah.
Right, and work around their circumstances, work above, below, around. That's my work. That's what I do.
So typically, who do you work with, or is it whom? I don't know which one.
Well, typically I work nationwide, all over North America. I've worked a little bit internationally. Primarily, it's K-12. My real sweet spot is elementary schools. That's where I'm most comfortable.
Sure.
That's my experience. Before COVID, the system kind of worked like this. I would do national conferences, right? So you do national conferences with 2,300 people there.
Maybe a keynote or
Yep,
a workshop,
keynote
whatever.
and/or workshop. And if 10 people out of there are interested in bringing you to their school, like that would feed the rest of my calendar. Then I would do another conference.
Right.
And that's what happened then. Now I'm learning to leverage social media a little more. I'm not a social media guy, but I do it to move the business forward.
Sure.
I tell my friends, I post and I get out. I don't spend a whole lot of time on it. And so that's how I'm generating business. And I'm working on a digital platform now to kind of. I've always been interested in leveraging digitally.
Right.
There's very little like completely passive income. But I want to leverage digital assets, so I do a lot of 2-minute videos, and I'm trying to figure out a platform where I can speak, because I love speaking
Right.
and I miss people. But I'm also not interested in being a 2 million miler on Delta. I'm a million miler, but
Right.
I don't want to go back to how much I've traveled. So I'm working on those things. But I work with elementary schools all across North America. No certain demographic, because the practices and principles and culture that I help schools establish, it's universal. It'll work if you work it. It's not specifically designed for urban schools or suburban schools. So I've been all over.
Right. And if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Great. You can go to my website. It's unfoldthesoul.com, or you can email me at ken@unfoldthesoul.com. But on the website, there are buttons there where if you want to contact and set up a time to talk, that would be great.
And there's some resources there, some videos you can watch, get a feel for what Ken does. And like I said earlier, I enjoy watching it. I'm not even in the education
I appreciate
business.
that.
I just think you've got a lot of really solid advice for anybody. And if nothing else, especially in this year, we all need to be uplifted a little bit. And sometimes the best way to be uplifted is to think of uplifting somebody else.
Oh man,
And
we're separated at birth.
yeah, so maybe we were. You're right. And that's what you do.
Yeah.
You're kind, and that's why you can have the positive appeal and the way you just carry yourself. Everybody can tell that, and you've been genuine too. I like that.
I appreciate it, brother.
But really, I think that you're bringing a lot of good to a lot of people.
I appreciate that.
And I'm honored to know you.
Thank you. I'm honored as well.
And I'm grateful you're a client.
Thank you,
I'm
good
grateful
brother.
you're a
Thank
client,
you. I
but
appreciate
more
the
than that, I
service.
hope that we can continue to spend some time together and get
I would
to
love
know
that.
more.
I would love
If
that.
there's some way we can go. I will tell you this. One of the things that we've been toying with, and I'm probably gonna say something that then my family goes, "Oh, you decided to drop that bomb today." But we've been toying with the idea of doing a teacher of the month, where maybe we'd give them like $100 worth of wash and fold laundry, because I know most teachers
Oh my
aren't
gosh.
doing the dry cleaning thing so much, but just hey, I don't have to think about laundry for a couple
awesome.
of weeks. And I don't know exactly how we're going to do it, but maybe we can have your help in getting the word out.
Oh, I would love that. I would love to
And
support.
because I think that's one of the things we'd really like to do, to kind of we want to give back where we can. And look, everybody's been hit by COVID.
No question.
Our business has certainly been, but I think that's one spot where we could really make a difference. And just give a little something to somebody to say, I don't know you, but I know what you do, and we appreciate it.
I
So,
think it's a great idea, and I would love to lend my help and support anywhere I can.
okay, well, Ken, thanks so much for being with us today. Again, Ken Williams, unfoldthesoul.com. Take a look over there, and if you are a podcast person, listen to Bless His Heart podcast. I think it'll be easy to find. I think you really will enjoy that. There's a little bit of salty stuff there.
A little bit.
But a
I
lot
made a
of fun.
commitment to read the journal as written, so fair warning.
Well, Ken, thanks so much
Thank
for
you,
being here
man.
today.
I appreciate it, good brother.